Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett. Merry Christmas and now a Happy New Year. Also, maybe you watched the series finale of Stranger Things. Hope you'd enjoyed that. We are living in a post-Stranger Things world in 2026, which sounds crazy, but funny enough, despite all those big things transpiring over the last week or so, that is not the biggest thing ahead of us in 2026 for the San Francisco 49ers, because I'm sure, like myself, after San Francisco beat the Bears just under a week ago, you then quickly turned your eye to Week 18, when the San Francisco 49ers will host the Seattle Seahawks in a winner-take-all for not just the NFC West division title, but also the number one seed in the NFC playoff picture. This is a Niners team that is 12-4 against a Seahawks team that is 13-3, one game separating them. And this is it, folks. This is the end game of the regular season. They can open up an entire world of possibilities for either the Seahawks or the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams enter on a 6-game winning streak. Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold go head-to-head for the second time this season, whereas the first time Brock Purdy got the best of Sam Darnold, where San Francisco narrowly walked off the Seahawks with a Brock Purdy miraculous touchdown to Jake Tunges and a Nick Bosa strip sack all the way back in week number 1 to secure the win. But will that happen again? Will Brock Purdy, who's on a heater right now, prevail over his former backup quarterback, or will Darnold and the Seahawks get their revenge 17 weeks later? And while the quarterbacks are certainly going to steal the headlines, right? That is the main talking point, Purdy versus Darnold, which quarterback can continue their current stretch of play. I do think we may have to start elsewhere, because I don't think the quarterbacks, although important, may not be the most important side of the football in this game. And you may be asking yourself, well, what is that, Sterling? If it isn't Brock Purdy after a 5-touchdown performance and Sam Darnold still keeping the Seahawks atop the NFC West against the Panthers last weekend, what could you be talking about? And we're talking about defenses first on the show, because right now I think the defenses are a major factor in where both these teams are and how much maybe you or I or somebody else believes in where these teams can go in the playoff picture. Because the Niners defense, quite frankly, it's a bunch of poo-poo. And I don't mean, oh, they're just bad because they have injuries. No, they're bad because, one, yes, the injuries, but two, even the guys they currently have are sometimes second stringers, sometimes third stringers. They just do not have the personnel. And I don't think it's crazy to say that it might be, barring the Buccaneers and Panthers, it may be the Steelers involved in there, but at least they have TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. I know Watt's out currently, but still, he may come back in the playoffs. But the Niners defense might be the most, at least, untrustworthy group remaining in the playoffs. And certainly amongst 12-win teams, they are by far the worst defense in that grouping. And I do think they were somewhat successful against the Bears, trying to get some pressure on Caleb Williams, especially in that fourth quarter. I know it was close towards the end. Had the Bears maybe had one more second, they probably would have won that game, but we'll never know, thank God. That said, despite San Francisco finding some pressure late in the game, and I do think they can beat up on Seahawks interior offensive lineman Gray Zabel, who had a really good beginning to his season, but the numbers don't fare well for him. But on top of that, their right guard, Anthony Bradford, is maybe the worst right guard in football. The Niners defense is a unit that continues to skate by the skin of their teeth. The Bears game comes to mind. Obviously, it's the most recent one, but the Rams game earlier in the season when they were in SoFi, games against the Seahawks week 1, and even that game against the Saints in week 2, that was closer than it probably should have been. But the question is now, can this Niners defense do it again? And to answer that question, you have to talk about who they're facing on Saturday, not Sunday, Saturday live on ESPN. I hate that. I hate that so much, but to each their own. Life goes on, and so do we. The Seahawks offense, though, while, yes, Sam Darnold is the biggest storyline, having a great season out there with the Seahawks, in 2025, now into 2026. They are very much a Niners-esque offense. What do I mean by that? With Kubiak calling plays, it is a very similar offensive scheme to San Francisco. Obviously, there is some divergence at times, but they want to run the football. They want to beat you deep on the ground and pound, and just make sure they can utilize play action and help to make the life of Darnold easier as a passer. Both teams this year, that being San Francisco and the Seahawks, are averaging roughly 29 attempts per game and averaging right around 4 yards per carry. I think Seattle's about 4.2 yards per carry, and San Francisco is around 3.8, so around 4 yards a pop per carry for each team. Very similar on the ground. They want to establish the run, and they do it relatively well. San Francisco having a lot more success as of recent than the Seahawks have had the majority of the year. But Kenneth Walker is their lead back. Having a good season, about 4.5 yards a carry, ranks 4th in the NFL with 9 runs above 20 yards per ESPN. And this is a guy where his name doesn't flash off the paper, right? When you see Kenneth Walker, probably isn't ranked among top running backs in football. Not a guy you're truly scared of when it comes to running the football, and really isn't a dynamic player when you think of him. But on the field, he's been a game changer for the Seahawks offense this season. Again, 9 carries above 20 yards, and there certainly is some fear there. I wasn't scared of DeAndre Swift. He broke one big run. I think San Francisco's run defense has been a lot better in recent weeks, obviously against the Colts and obviously against the Bears last Sunday night. But while I do think this team can hold Kenneth Walker at bay, am I crazy to think I don't think he is the Seahawks' best running back? Because Zach Charbonnet has been fantastic for them. Well, the numbers may not, again, jump off the paper. You're not going to go to his box score and say, wow, Zach Charbonnet. But he just does the little things right. I go back to that game against the Rams. Heads up play, I guess, where he picks up the football in the end zone, ends up being a score for the Seahawks, and was a big difference maker in getting that game to overtime between those two NFC West division rivals. But despite, again, him not being a big name, I am much more concerned about Zach Charbonnet than I am Kenneth Walker. And maybe Seahawks fans or Niner fans can say I'm crazy, but the reason why I say that is because with the Niners tackling inconsistencies, which were better against the Bears, a lot better against the Bears, they just still, that is a big point of contention of if you do not tackle, you will not win. And San Francisco allowed, 38 points against Chicago last Sunday. And if you do that against Seattle, the odds would say you're probably not going to win this game. And really, if you allow 28 points, you might not win this Saturday. But I think a big reason for Seattle's success on the ground this season is because of a player like Zach Charbonnet. He is their drive finisher. He is their drive extender. He has right now in 4 less carries, just 3 less first downs than Kenneth Walker, and on the year 11 touchdowns this season. If I told you Zach Charbonnet had double-digit touchdowns, would you believe me? Probably not, but he's been such a big factor in what the Seahawks do. They have a 1-2 punch, which may not be amongst the top of the NFL, but they are nitty, they're gritty, they want to get their hands dirty, and they don't mind lowering their shoulder, making a couple of guys miss. And Charbonnet, as of recent, has looked like one of the more patient runners in football, especially on third down, so watch out for him. Zach Charbonnet, to me, is a massive X factor in this game for Seattle above Kenneth Walker. If you allow Zach Charbonnet to do what he's done the last month and a half or so, maybe even all year, on third downs, on third and longs, go back to the game against Carolina for Seattle, it's like 3rd and 20. He's converting on plays because Carolina can't tackle, and he's making guys miss. That, to me, is a major, major factor for the Seattle Seahawks, above what Jonathan Taylor did, above what Monangai and Swift would allow for Chicago last Sunday. I am not, shaking in my boots, but knowing San Francisco's tackling deficiencies at times, Zach Charbonnet scares the ever-living crap out of me. And if they can get that going with Walker and Charbonnet, then you're opening up the floodgates for this Seahawks offense led by their quarterback, Sam Darnold. And we know by now, the Seahawks want to establish the run. And why you do that? Because you want to establish play action. Right now, this season, Darnold ranks second in the entire NFL. That includes starting quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, per Pro Football Focus on play action plays. Right now, he is the second ranked play action quarterback passer in the entire league. That's why it's so imperative to stop Charbonnet and stop Kenneth Walker. And usually when you have a team that's 13-3, you probably wouldn't want the ball into the quarterback's hands. I almost think it's the opposite. If you can stop the run, you want to have that ball in Sam Darnold's hand. And it's crazy to say because, again, the Seahawks have won 13 games, and Darnold is the third-ranked deep passer in football. So you're kind of saying, Sterling, why do you want a guy that is almost built to beat this Niners defense over the top and in play action? Why do you want the ball in his hands so much? Here's why. Because in the first 9 games of this season, where fans were saying, oh, Sam Darnold's the MVP, oh my God, he's breaking out, the Vikings made a mistake, and they certainly did, in letting him go. He was 7-2, a 71.1 completion rate, 2,262 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, and 10 total turnovers. That's fantastic. You will take that group of stats, and carry it over for 17 games. However, despite the Seahawks still winning, again, in their last 7 games, 6-1, they're 13-3. They're winning football games. I do think while Darnold has clutched up at times against the Rams, was a big game a couple weeks ago for him, you have seen him start to slow down, him start to give the ball away more, him start to turn in to a pumpkin, if you will. He may be seeing ghosts at times. In his last 7 games, he has seen his completion rate drop almost 8 points from 71.2 to 63.2. He has seen the yardage go down. Obviously, there's 2 less games involved, from 2262 to 1,588. But this is the big one here. He has seen his touchdown totals drop from 17 in 9 games to just 8 in his last 7 games. However, the turnovers have been steady. So your touchdowns drop basically in half in the last 7 games compared to your first 9, but your turnovers have remained at 10. In his last 7 games, Sammy D, the Red Rifle Jr., if you will, has turned the ball over 10 times again. So far this year, what is that, 25 touchdowns, 20 turnovers? That's not what you want from your starting quarterback, especially late in the season when 1 turnover or 2 could be a big determining factor in this game. So the question is, okay, if you want Darnold dropping back, you want him being or having the ball in his hands consistently, if some way San Francisco guys like Bethune and Alfred Collins and Jordan Elliott and Yetur Gross-Matos and the linebackers and D. Winters and guys can help stop the run, make some tackles, limit what Walker and Charbonnet can do, and the ball is in Darnold's hand in the drop-back passing game, you hope to not eliminate, but at least limit play action for this Seahawks offense. How do you get to him? Do you blitz him? Do you bring nickel blitzes? What do you do to rattle Sam Darnold, knowing that you don't have Nick Bosa? You haven't had Nick Bosa almost all year. You still don't have Fred Warner back. To me, this is a big game for players like Keon White and Yetur Gross-Matos and CJ West and maybe even Jordan Elliott, who's been a positive pass rusher for San Francisco on the interior this season as a defensive tackle. I think they need career games from Keon White, who we're not sure if he'll play this Saturday, has a groin injury. He hasn't practiced all week. It is Thursday, mind you, so things may change in the coming days, but you need YGM. You signed him to a big contract 2 years ago. He has been, when healthy, this year, one of the better interior pass rushers, but the health is a big problem. Now he's healthy. Can he regain his form that he had earlier in the season when he was playing next to Michael and Bosa and guys like that? So you need big games from those guys. You want to see the continued improvement and emergence of West in the pass rush game. He had his first career sack 2 weeks ago. Can you continue to grow as a rookie player now near the end of your first season? And I think the Niners offensive line, especially their interior pass rush, will actually have a pretty good opportunity this Saturday against the Seahawks offensive line, because despite Gray Zabel, the Seahawks first round draft pick, having a really good season so far, the numbers really don't fare well for him. And on top of that, their right guard, Anthony Bradford, is terrible. And I'm not talking about, oh, he's bad or, okay, he's below average. No. You can watch the film, the All-22. There are plays he's one blocking nobody. Also plays he's blocking himself to the ground. That's how bad he is. We think Jake Brendel's bad. Anthony Bradford is Jake Brendel, but like the upside down version, to bring in Stranger Things into this of like, oh my God, how do you, one, play in the NFL, but two, how are you a starting guard on a 13-win team? That's how concerning this is for the Seahawks. And I think San Francisco, Robert Saleh and company probably see that and say, that's the way in, right? A lot of folks out there, including myself, want to talk about San Francisco having to win at the margins, finding the one way to get victory, finding the one way that may alter the trajectory of games. It's beating the Seahawks on the interior offensive line, beating Gray Zabel and beating Anthony Bradford, getting some interior pressure against Sam Darnold, which has been his Achilles heel the last couple of years. You go back to last season with the Vikings. The reason things fell apart for him late in the year was because teams like Detroit and others could get interior pass rush and kind of pressure him, get him off his spots, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, goes, boo! And he's terrified. He's throwing ducks in the middle of the field, and you can hopefully turn those into turnovers. And I think going through Gray Zabel and Anthony Bradford are the best ways to do so. Combined this year, their center and right guard have allowed 49 pressures, 5 sacks, and have an average of a 49.5 pass blocking grade per PFF. So if you're looking for an X factor, you're looking for a way to beat this Seahawks offense, I do think, getting pressure on Sam Darnold on the interior, but mainly going at Gray Zabel, Anthony Bradford might be the best way to do so. I think you may see Saleh utilize some stunts and maybe bring guys through the middle. Now, I wouldn't blitz Sam Darnold very much. I don't think that's the way to go because the ball's out quick. He's moving around, making plays in the pocket. He's a quarterback that, despite an early career struggles, has really found a groove in an offense that wants the ball out quick. They trust him enough to go deep, obviously the third-ranked deep ball passer in football, but if you allow the Seahawks to eat over the middle, they will. But I think you will see Saleh at times in a limited capacity. Keyword is limited capacity. Maybe bring a D. Winters or bring maybe a blitzing safety to help get some pressure on the interior, free up somebody, bring a stunt. Hopefully things can work itself out. But it's a big ask for young players like Collins and West to hopefully execute those stunts, and even young players like Mustafa and Brown if they want to utilize some safety blitzes, which I wouldn't do too much of, knowing this defense really can't cover on the back end very well. So it's a very thin line, right? The Niners are going to have to ride that lightning, and there's going to be risks, and if they work, they'll pay off for you. But if you utilize a safety blitz or a nickel blitz, you're leaving, JSN or Cooper Kupp or Rashid Shaheed wide open downfield. And if you give Darnold time, he's going to hit it. And so if you're going to make those risks and take those chances, you really have to pinpoint your marker. You have to find the one time, and this is going to have to be a masterclass from Robert Saleh. And maybe I'm hyping up the Seahawks offense too much. I know Darnold's not played well recently, but I do think this is a game where you're going to see the Seahawks on their game. You beat them, 17 weeks ago in their own place. You kind of walked them off. You probably shouldn't have won that game, but you did. Kittle got hurt. You had some late game heroics by Brock Purdy and some backup tight ends and whatnot. But this is a game where I'm sure the Seahawks are like, San Francisco doesn't belong in our field or belong in the same tier as us. They're relatively healthy, basically, on defense and on offense, whereas San Francisco is not. And they would want nothing more than to, one, beat you in your own place, but two, beat you on the road, knock you and lock you into a wild card spot, which maybe it's the 5th seed, maybe it's the 6th seed, barring what the Rams do with the Cardinals this week on Sunday. And you could be playing either, let's say it's the Panthers or the Buccaneers and the NFC South winner with the 5th seed and 4th seed facing off, or you're playing the Eagles on the road at the Link as a 6th seed. So this is a big game for San Francisco. You want to win for obvious reasons to get the 1 seed, but 2, you're hoping the Rams lose if you do lose to help avoid playing Philadelphia on the road with that great defense they have. So winning's great, and we're trying to figure out ways to do that, which probably isn't blitzing Sam Darnold, and it really is about just relying on your guys to pin their ears back and go get it. That said, the Seahawks offense has got some dudes, has got some weapons. The first one obviously being Jackson Smith-Njigba. The way he has how do I word this? The way JSN has grown this season, the way he's exceeded the expectations that I thought for him, the way I thought maybe coming into the year, you were like, yeah, he's a really good number 2, that he has looked like and been a true X factor all year. He's grown into a top 5 wide receiver. He is just awesome. He's awesome. And I can eat some crow early in the year, not buying into the hype. And all of a sudden he's been awesome. And the way his routes are running, he's so silky smooth. He can beat almost anybody in coverage. And you can maybe pick apart the Seahawks schedule at times, but JSN eats. And, you'd want to look at what the Rams did in that first half against the Seahawks, because he was basically shut out. And I don't think there was an answer to what the Rams were doing. Their cornerbacks aren't good. I think it was just more of a rut the Seahawks offense got into, and you're kind of praying for that because it's really hard to slow down JSN no matter who you're playing against. And I think, you'll go back to week 1 against San Francisco. The Niners did not get they didn't get a takeaway until that very last play of the game, right? The big fumble, I believe, on Darnold, the big strip sack fumble. And JSN went for 124 yards on 9 receptions, but the offense was held to 13 points. And, you're thinking, well, if you can hold JSN to 125 on 9 receptions and their offense at 13 points and the quarterback turns the ball over once, you'll take that. Now, that defense is really different, but I do think a big reason we saw the Niners be able to, while not hold JSN at bay, they were able to at least slow him down a tick where he didn't get in the end zone. And I think you only beat them deep downfield once, and that was later in the game when he had the kind of a falling down play towards the left sideline. And I think getting Renardo Green back, despite the struggles he's had this year, despite some of the issues this Niners secondaries had in communication, which is still a problem after having a really good couple of weeks, it's come back into the fray, which hasn't been good. But I think having a bigger bodied guy like Green, that's 6'1", 200 plus pounds, that can maybe get some hands on JSN, that can maybe play some press coverage, and kind of limit him at the line a little bit. I think the one thing you want to do with guys like JSN is hit him every single play. Get your hands on him. Obviously, avoid penalties and whatnot, but you want to be feisty and gritty and mean and get in their face, get in their grill. One thing the Panthers have done all year with J.C. Horn, who wasn't great against the Seahawks, mind you, but in other games has been really good. He's a big, physical cornerback that wants to get in your face, get hands on you, push you around, and kind of get you off your spot. That, I think, is the game plan. At least that's what I would do for JSN. Maybe I'm crazy. But for a thinner guy that relies on route running and whatnot, that isn't a bigger wide receiver. He isn't small by any means, but he isn't a physical specimen, if you will. He's not going to out-bully you. I think you want to get hands on him. You want to double team him, and you just want to say, look, we're going to play zone coverage, but we're going to make sure, and you have to have your communication on point. But I think if you're going to play press coverage, you want to make sure you have, some safety help over the top and hope that Green and his size can withstand JSN's output, because it'll be a lot. no matter what you do. However, you do have the factor of Demo Lenore is asking Robert Saleh to shadow JSN, which, one, I love that. Like, you want to have your star players saying, look, biggest game of the year, call my number, coach. Put me in, coach. And I love that. And I think, here's the thing. It's that while you want that mentality, while you want the hyena out of Lenore, I can almost guarantee if that does happen, Demo's probably going to get called for a DPI or get called for a roughness penalty because he just can't help himself. I mean, there's been some ticky-tack ones this year. The one against the Colts was pretty crappy where he punched the ball out of Taylor's hands. But, maybe biting the bullet and having Lenore shadow him is the best option. You're seeing teams not throw towards him. And there's been some problems along the way for Lenore this year, and there's been some coverage mishaps, but I think a lot of that is safety issues behind him and communication. But that comes with playing with a young unit around you. And I think Lenore saying, look, this team cannot win this game, or at least doesn't have a good chance to win unless I'm out there, fiending on JSN and hopefully locking him down. This is a big game, and I would not be shocked to see San Francisco utilize Lenore to shadow JSN. And a big reason for that is because this exact same defense, albeit different coordinators, when the Seahawks had DK Metcalf, what they do? Mooney Ward, you're going to shadow him. And they locked him down. Now, I think JSN's much better than Metcalf is and has ever been, but I don't know, like, you want your best cornerbacks on the opposing team's best wide receivers. I know Saleh really isn't that guy because they play zone. They don't really shadow guys like that, but I don't know. I really think this is a good opportunity to be like, look, we need to have our best guys on the best guy, like in the NBA, and it's very different, but you want your best defender on the opposing team's best scorer for obvious reasons, barring height and a size advantage of the opposition. But, and I know that really, comes into play here. JSN's a bigger receiver height-wise compared to Demo, is pretty short as a cornerback, but I don't know. There is that feistiness of like, hey, at least try it early. If it doesn't work, then go back to green and stuff. But it's going to be tough no matter what. I can see JSN, going for, again, 125 and 10 and getting a touchdown, and you're like, he's going to get his. It's more about how can you survive and limit that to being the only person that beats you at a consistent rate. Because I really don't think the Seahawks, while they do have weapons, a big one being A.J. Barner, their tight end, who's come on late this year and been a big factor in their success, 50 receptions, 505 yards, and 6 touchdowns, a big test for San Francisco safeties and Tatum Bethune out there in coverage, D. Winters as well. Darnold's not afraid to throw in tight windows. This is a game where I think if the Niners drop a pick, they're going to lose. Because Darnold will give it up. He will. But you got to catch the football. And this team has been prone to dropping pivotal interception opportunities in big games against division opponents and come playoff time. But I don't really think that the Seahawks receiving core offers much of value outside of JSN. To me, it's Charbonnet, Walker, Barner, and JSN. But Cooper Kupp, we'll see what happens with Upton Stout. I know he said he has a concussion and he's kind of battling through that. So hopefully he plays. And if he's not going to play, I can see San Francisco, utilizing their big nickel package, not wanting to play Chase Lucas so much. But, and quite frankly, I never want to see Jason Pinnock out there in coverage again. I know they have to because of the personnel they have, but he's been so bad this season where it is borderline nightmare fuel when you see a wide receiver, tight end, running back, being guarded by him. It's almost a guaranteed catch every time. So you're kind of praying that Stout's healthy. He did call Kupp one of his biggest tests of the season, but I think Stout, like Lenore, is feisty in coverage. He'll get called for penalties. He'll get beat at times, but he's got longer arms for a shorter guy, and I think that can help keep Kupp at bay. The other dude is Rashid Shaheed, who, for whatever reason, despite trading from the deadline, he's not been a big factor in their offense. He, like Stout, has his own concussion, but if he's healthy, I would expect the Seahawks to at least target him once deep downfield. Like, if I'm Seattle early in the game, why would you not take a shot? Jair Brown is slow as all get out. That dude is like a Volkswagen 2003 Hong Kong, slug buggy, slug back. That dude's slow as all get out. Whereas you have Shaheed, who's a freaking Ferrari, and you're just like, go. And that's, 0 to 100 real quick, whatever it is. Shout out Drake. And it's just like, that to me is a mismatch this defense has of like, they're going to get behind this secondary a ton. And it's one, how can you avoid that? But two, when it does happen, how do you respond? Can you make a tackle? Do you play the ball? Do you play the receiver? I'd almost want them to play the receiver simply because, this team has a hard time playing the ball sometimes. And so, I don't know when they'll get Shaheed involved. He's been kind of hit or miss in the offense, but I would expect against these safeties, they'll take a shot downfield. And if you're Robert Saleh, your boys got to be ready. That said, they are going to get Shaheed probably involved in the running game on jet sweeps, end arounds, get the ball into the hands of a guy like him. He can make one dude miss and he's gone. He's like a one-cut back playing wide receiver. And that's not what you want if you're San Francisco, knowing how bad this team is on the boundary and at tackling. The other thing is, and it's a big X factor for me, these two teams are phenomenal in special teams. And you saw that game against the Rams. How did the Seahawks mount that comeback? How did Seattle find their way into winning that game late, which made way for them to become the number 1 seed right now? They have a just far out, to use a 80s and 90s term. They're just an awesome return group led by Rashid Shaheed. He is 1 kick away from a return every time. And if I'm Thomas Morstead, if I'm Pinheiro, out of bounds, back of the end zone. I do not want this man getting the ball on punts and kicks. If I am, again, the punter and kicker, Pinheiro, Morstead, I am more than comfortable giving the Seahawks offense the ball at the 35-yard line than giving Rashid Shaheed an opportunity to return a potential touchdown. I want to avoid that at all costs. I want to avoid that risk. And again, it's how do you avoid the big mistake? Well, San Francisco's unit has been so good all year. Thank you so much, Brant Boyer. I am saying if I can avoid giving the opposing team a chance or a high percentage chance at a touchdown, I want to avoid that. It's already going to be a big task enough for this defense to be able to cover and play against Darnold and company. Why would I want to maybe give the opposing team a better field position or give them easier points? So if I see Shaheed back there, that punt better be out of the back of the end zone. The kick better be out of the back of the end zone or towards the out of bounds mark. Go towards the sidelines. Limit where he can go. Funnel him towards one side. Give your unit a chance at least, and give your defense a chance to hopefully play some bend, don't break. That is what they have to do if they want to win this game on Saturday, and I would assume they do, because why wouldn't you want to? A bye week means so much for this banged-up Niners team. Getting into some more key factors before getting into the offense, this Niners defense, like I already said, must get interior pressure on Sam Darnold via beating Gray Zabel and Anthony Bradford. But two, the other big factor, shutting down play action, obviously a big one as well, but getting off the field on third downs. This Niners defense has just been god-awful at times this year, getting off the field on third downs. The Seahawks are an average third down offense. They are a 39% allowed or conversion rate all year. That's average. It's 15th in football. You're one below the average mark at 16. Whereas the Niners all year are around 39%, but the last 3 games against the Colts, the Titans, and the Bears, 45% on third downs. If you're going to give the Seahawks offense a 45% third down clip, you ain't going to win. You ain't going to win. So you have to find a way to get off the field on third downs, which hopefully stopping play action or stopping the run game can stop play action and help lead this Niners defense to playing bend, don't break, and maybe a victory on their side of the football. Before we get into the offense, though, I do want to remind you, while the holidays are over, it doesn't mean the season of giving is, because right now, SeatGeek is giving us still $20 off our first purchases using promo code 49ers Access. 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Again, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com. Use that promo code. Find yourself some tickets to a concert. You want to go see this game live at Levi Stadium this Saturday, only 2 days away, or if San Francisco finds their way into getting into the playoffs and hosting 2 playoff games and maybe even a third, if all goes their way, use that promo code and save yourself $20 off some playoff tickets. They're expensive, I know, but it is an opportunity for a once-in-a-lifetime game to attend. Use that promo code, save yourself some money. Christmas over, Thanksgiving over, Happy New Year, it's long gone as we enter into the second and third of 2026. But again, the season of giving is not. Use that promo code 49ers Access, 49 ERS ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. And that brings us to San Francisco's offense against the Seattle Seahawks defense, which may be the biggest matchup in this game. On one hand, you have the juggernaut Niners offense led by Brock Purdy with 10 touchdowns in his last 2 games, maybe playing the best football he ever has in his life. That includes a MVP finalist finish in 2023. On top of that, he has Christian McCaffrey. He has George Kittle. 2 maybe future Hall of Fame players on his offense. Next to him, Ricky Pearsall has remained healthy after coming back last Sunday against the Bears. And you have Jawan Jennings, who could become the first Niners wide receiver with double-digit touchdowns since Terrell Owens. He's got 9. Can he get 10? This offense is loaded. Can they get it done against this Seahawks defense, which has been a ho-hum unit led by young dudes and veterans alike that have been holding the fort down and keeping this Seahawks team in games? They've won games for the Seahawks team themselves. They create turnovers. They get sacks. They wreak havoc. This is San Francisco's biggest test defensively, let's say maybe since you go all the way back to the Texans game. That was a long time ago. This Niners team is different, but can they score points, and can they be the biggest difference maker in a Niners win or a Niners loss this Saturday live at Levi Stadium? And I think, like the Seahawks, things do not start with the quarterback play, which is weird. I know, but this game will probably come down to which team, at least offensively, can establish the run. Can Christian McCaffrey continue his 100-yard game stretch? Done it twice consecutively for the first time all year, I believe. Can he do it for a third to end the 2025 regular season? And I think it's going to be tough because this Seahawks run defense ranks 3rd in football with 94 yards allowed per game. That's not a lot. In fact, that's the 3rd best. Like I already said, I'm repeating myself for emphasis. Emphasis! However, yet, but wait, there's more. They've allowed 106 yards per game over the last 3 weeks. So a slight 12-yard bump, which may lend way for Christian McCaffrey having some more success than the numbers may imply. And I do think a big reason for that is, I think a big reason why San Francisco and CMC can continue their success is they're running a lot of power. The wide zone stuff, the inside zone stuff, it's there still, but power has been this offense's prowess as they go on and gain some steam as the season rounds itself out. They're running a lot of power plays on the ground. They're running power. They're getting guys open. They're finding lanes. They're moving guys around. They're getting use, check, and motion. They're doing it in play action. They're doing it in passing plays and also on the ground as well. And I think this Seahawks interior offensive line, where instead of running to the outside and getting open, like, you want to funnel this run game into the interior. Go back to the Colts game for the Seahawks, right? 69 of the Colts' 102 yards were allowed between the guards. That's right guard and left guard. 69 yards of the 102 were allowed in between the guards. That's a pretty good rate if you were the Colts. And the Colts lost that game by a game-winning 60-yard field goal by Myers of Seattle. The Rams, the game against the Rams, which funny enough, the Seahawks also won, but still, if you give Shanahan a good running game that opens up play action, that can funnel things for Brock Purdy, make things easier, get guys open, utilize motion, and bing, bang, boom, control the clock on top of it, you're going to have a good game for the San Francisco 49ers. The Rams and Seahawks game that was played, 2 weeks ago now, I think? The Rams with Williams and Corum, 76 of their 124 yards were between the guards and power, eating up the interior of the Seahawks defensive line. This is a good opportunity for San Francisco to find some success, keeping the power game moving, running power, run plays, and getting and feeding CMC, hoping his back's not stiff. He's going to play on Saturday, but still, this is a big game and a good opportunity, I think, for San Francisco to, despite the Seahawks rushing attack ranking 30 yards per game, getting a little tired late in the year, and you're seeing the cracks begin to show, especially in between the guards, left guard to right guard. There are holes to be played in San Francisco right now, seeing the offensive line with Burford and Brendel and Pooney hitting their stride at the right time. I think it's a good opportunity for them to hopefully find and continue their success against the Seahawks this Saturday. Also, running inside is a better opportunity to avoid the Seahawks' good running, defending secondary. Where the Seahawks lack in coverage, they make up for playing really good run defense on the perimeter. How do you avoid that? Run on the inside, run power. I don't know if you're going to see CMC make guys miss like he did against the Colts and against the Bears, but I do think you will see CMC have some success on the ground, running up the middle in power plays, but also avoiding guys like Devin Witherspoon and Reek Woolen, bigger cornerbacks that can tackle well and bring running back and ball carriers down. I think you want to avoid the perimeter, not at all costs, but, much as you can, because their weakness is on the interior, not the perimeter. We do have one concern, though, when discussing the Niners offense, is that it doesn't seem like Trent Williams will play this Saturday. It's a big loss. It really sucks because Trent has been healthy all year, had a handful of scares early in the season, but has really played well. He's 36 years old, no signs of slowing down, or at least retiring. And he's gotten better as the year's gone on against really good defenses. His one big miss was the one against Myles Garrett, which it's Myles Garrett, whatever. Besides that, he's been pretty much locked down in one of the best pass blocking left tackles in football. In the second half of the season, he's probably not going to play. He's a hamstring strain, never had one in his 15-year career, which is crazy to me, but it doesn't seem like he'll play, which you can argue, risk it for the biscuit. If you win this game, you get a bye week and you're good there. But if you're San Francisco, it's like we'd rather have you ready in case we have to win 3 playoff games than have you play, get hurt, and lose you for a divisional round matchup, which I don't know. I'm kind of in between there. Obviously, Trent knows his body better than I do. But you are going to likely have to go out there with your offensive line without Trent, featuring now Austin Pleasance, who was awesome against Chicago. But me and you talked before that game that, the Bears defensive line doesn't really possess that one difference maker. Austin Booker was almost that, batting balls down, and I think he had 1 sack in that game, or he almost had 1 sack in that game, I think. Almost leveled Brock Purdy, but Purdy ducked under it before he got hit. But this, to me, has the makings of a Connor Colby outing where, wow, Colby comes in against the Saints or against the Seahawks in week 1 of the season, week 2 of the season, and he looks okay. Wow, not overwhelmed. But then in his first career start, you're like, oh, you're not very good. And this kind of feels the same, where Pleasance, good for him, came in relief. He played almost the entirety of the game against the Bears. But now that it seems like, you're going to have footage, you're going to have, tape on guys, you're going to have to go through scouting reports of Austin Pleasance. It doesn't factor well for San Francisco. I would expect, them to move Purdy out of the pocket more often than not, maybe utilize some bootlegs because, backup left tackles, really backup offensive linemen that are playing tackle. The interior, I think, is better because you have some help and you can play backups there, but you have backup tackles. It's not great, and it's Brock Purdy's blind side. So that, to me, is a big, big area of concern for the 49ers. I would expect the Seahawks to do their best to overwhelm the left side of San Francisco's offensive line, whether it's bring an extra blitzer or an extra pass rusher on that side. If this was San Francisco and the roles were reversed and you see the Seahawks with their backup left tackle or another team with their backup left tackle and you were fully healthy, you're like Nick Bosa, Micah Williams, Bryce Huff, blood in the water. Here we go. Attack, 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 attack. It's the same reason why I'm talking about trying to get some pass rush against, Anthony Bradford and Greg Zabel. The Seahawks, I'm sure all their podcasters are like, oh, it's Austin Pleasance. It isn't Trent Williams and DeMarcus Lawrence. Here we come. And rightfully so. It's really scary. Really scary. I do think San Francisco should be able to keep Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams at bay. I, funny enough, do trust Pooney and Burford and Brendel a lot in this game with the way they're playing, but we all know this, that Mike McDonald has had Shanahan's, not number, but there's been some history where this type of defense, a Ravens-style defense, a Jim Schwartz-esque style defense, albeit different, has given Shanahan some fits with the blitzes, the exotic, stunts and whatnot. It'll bring confusion. It'll create confusion. And you're hoping that where Pleasance may struggle, the other 4 guys will have a big game and hope kind of keep their quarterback upright. Because if the Niners offensive line can keep Brock Purdy upright, keep him, faced up and being able to get protection and give him time to throw, we may have another party on our hands. This could be another shootout for the ages with Purdy and Darnold going head-to-head back and forth. Obviously, Brock Purdy's job will be tougher this Saturday, playing a much better defense. Like, this is a bottom 20 defense for San Francisco and probably a top 10 defense, top 5 defense, if not number 1 defense in football for the Seahawks. It's like Texans, Browns, Seahawks. Like, that's how good this defense has been all year. But like I said at the beginning of the show, Brock Purdy is coming off the hottest stretch of his career. Since week 11, he's played 6 games, right? His return from the turf toe injury, which he still has, but is playing lights out. 70.7 completion rate, 1,454 passing yards, and 19 total touchdowns. To give you perspective, going all the way back to what Sam Darnold did, in 9 games, Darnold was a 71.1 completion percentage, whereas Brock Purdy is 70.7, near identical. 9 games again for Darnold, 2,262 yards. When you give Brock Purdy 3 more games, I'm sure he'll reach the 2,000 marker by far and probably surpass that. But right now, just under 1,500 passing yards, whereas Darnold had 17 touchdowns in 9 games. Purdy has had 19 touchdowns in 6 games. For all the hype Darnold got to begin the year, oh my God, it's Sam Darnold, second best quarterback in the entire division, maybe the entire conference. He's top 10. Purdy's outplayed that in 3 less games. Now, there's been some turnovers involved, but it certainly isn't 10. What is it? It's a fumble against the Titans, an interception against the Colts, and then two or three turnovers against the Panthers. But other than that, he didn't do one against the Browns. He threw one against the Bears, the pick 6. So it's been around 7 turnovers, I think, maybe 8, but 19 touchdowns. He's outplaying Darnold over that time, and Purdy's been throwing a lot more probably in that time because he's had to, because this Niners team is either behind, or at least when they're not behind, they got to score quick because they got to play catch up, or they at least have to keep their lead, because the passing offense has been so dangerous against opposing defenses. I will say this, that at linebacker and cornerback for the Seahawks, they have one good coverage player, and it's Devon Witherspoon. He's been awesome this year for the Seahawks. He's their guy. He belongs in not top 10 cornerback conversations, but deserves respect nonetheless. I think it was Birdman said, put some respect on my name. We're putting some respect on Devon Witherspoon's name in week 18. That said, one of our favorites on the show to pick on, to go at, one of the favorite players for this Niners offense to target at a continual rate is Rick Woolen. And I would say they're going to do it again because he was the guy week 1 who on the last drive was a big hindrance for the Seahawks secondary. And I think this year, or in week 18 against Seattle, it'll happen again. Right now this year, allowing a 57.1% reception rate, which really isn't too bad. However, he's a pretty poor graded coverage player per PFF, but he's also allowed 341 yards and 3 touchdowns, also been penalized 8 times. He will break under pressure. He gets rattled. He is almost the defensive version of DK Metcalf. And if you see him out there, take a chance. That, to me, is someone that I would want to have Jauan Jennings on, a physical receiver that can get in his grill, get in his face, and quite frankly, maybe have him be called a hoe again, because that's what opposing defensive players think of Jauan Jennings. Get him rattled, talk your mess, talk your crap, and maybe draw a penalty, which Woolen is pretty prone to. Certainly top 10 of penalties for cornerbacks this season. The other guy is Nick Emanwori. This Seahawks defense will use the 3 safety sets. Nick Emanwori fills this Kyle Hamilton role for the Seahawks, which is what McDonald used with Baltimore a couple of years ago. But when they put Emanwori in the slot and he's not playing a blitzing role or an in the box kind of safety slot role, on rundowns or whatnot, if he's in coverage, you can exploit him. Now, he is going to be a better physical matchup against people like Jauan Jennings, against guys like George Kittle, who is back this Saturday. But in coverage this season, he's allowed a 73.8% completion rate, 426 yards, and 2 touchdowns. While you may have the physical matchup or the lack thereof, a physical mismatch with Kittle and Jennings, I do think when guys get big, and sometimes it can backfire because press coverage exists, right? But if they're going to play some off coverage with Emanwori, you may want to utilize Ricky Pearsall here. He's shifty. He can get open. He can sit in soft zones. I do think with him being your best route runner, if they're going to utilize Nick Emanwori, who does have some problems in coverage, and that was a big MO for him coming out of South Carolina, I do think this is someone you want to target with Pearsall. There's a reason why Pearsall is an X factor. I know he isn't the biggest name, the biggest receiver, and he's had a lot of bumps in the road to get to where he is now. But I do think this is a game where Pearsall can be a game-changing force. He was a big game changer against the Titans early in the season or earlier a couple weeks ago. He had a couple of big catches against the Bears last Sunday, and I think that continues. There's a reason why we've said all year, if this team wants to go someplace, you got to have Kittle, got to have McCaffrey and Purdy for sure, but you have to have a receiver that can beat soft zone coverage, beat press coverage, and sit in those soft zones and just make guys miss. He makes guys miss. Not in tackling, but in coverage. He makes dudes look stupid, foolish. He makes guys look like you didn't go back to school, brother, because you're lost in the dust, and now you're held back a couple grade levels. That's how good Pearsall can be in his route running. Go back and watch the Bears game and the Bears tape. It was not fun for Bears defenders. And this Seahawks team, despite having good numbers and playing and getting turnovers and takeaways, and all these guys can do that still, and it could be a loss for San Francisco, but they can be beat in coverage. And you're giving me Shanahan, Purdy on a heater, and you got Pearsall and Kittle and Jennings out there. This Niners offense, if they can protect their quarterback, should find some success. One more wrinkle to this, though, is that these Seahawks are going to mix in more safeties. Julian Love being a starter for them. He's one of the best in football. He deserves so much praise. The Giants a couple years ago and coming over to Seattle, he's been a big reason why they've had success on defense. But also they found a guy in Ty Okada, I think is his name. He kind of came out of nowhere. He's just been a guy where he's like at the right place at the right time. And, I do have concerns about Purdy's interceptions. I know It really wasn't he threw a pick six against Chicago, so it was a big deal early, but he bounced back, and he almost threw a pick against Chicago later in the game, thrown across his body, and thankfully a penalty was called, which he didn't know that was going to happen. So there has been some blimps that maybe have been erased on the resume. But Purdy will get himself into trouble at times, and I think this is a game where you're going to have both quarterbacks turn the ball over, and I wouldn't be shocked if Purdy does it twice. Now, I think the Niners can still bounce the way back, but this can't turn into a turnover fest. You can't have games like you had against the Titans where, they're winning, and all of a sudden, here come the Seattle Seahawks late because Niners can't play keep away or whatnot. This is a game where you need San Francisco to play their cleanest ball of the season. And if they don't, you better hope it doesn't turn into 2 or 3 or 4. I don't think it will, but I do think there is a real outcome where Brock Purdy, whether it's San Francisco being down or whatnot, but, there is some worry in my heart that Purdy throws a pick early and maybe a pick late, one per half, and we're sitting there like, God, he was playing so well. What happened? Or, you just can't make that throw. Purdy threw a couple picks against Seattle week 1, 2, and you're like, what are you doing, man? Now he's played different then. He's in more of a groove, and there really is nothing more dangerous than a great quarterback playing, at their best, right? It's a hot knife through butter. It's like, whoa, this steamrolled him over. And I think San Francisco can do that, but I'm expecting that margin of error being really thin still against a really good Seahawks team that's playing not their best football, but playing good football still going into week 18. They don't lose games. They've lost 3 games all year for a reason. A big part of it is their defense. So watch out, Brock Purdy. But thankfully for Brock Purdy, thankfully for Brock Purdy, words are hard. I'm hyped up, as you can tell. There is one more note to make when it comes to the on-the-field action between these two teams. And that is George Kittle. How great is George Kittle? How awesome is it to have, one of the best tight ends in football roaming the middle of your offense and being a big factor in the running game and being one of your best receivers? Because I did the work, folks. I went through every single game this year, and I dug up the stats. You're not getting this anywhere else. You might be, but hopefully it's here. The Seahawks against tight ends this year, quite frankly, they stink. Now, you'd love to see the Niners utilize Tungus and Farrell and Kittle, and I think Tungus would be awesome, running in the slot or just being another receiving threat that has some size. He has great hands, and he has good body control. You maybe use that more if you are Kyle Shanahan. That said, you get George Kittle back against the Seahawks defense that has allowed a 66 completion rate against tight ends this season, 963 yards, and you go look at those games against teams like the Chargers and against teams like the Cardinals that have, really good physical tight ends, McBride being one of the best in football. He took over games. Now, they didn't win those games because the Cardinals are terrible, but you let George Kittle have too much fun, and you saw it against the Seahawks in week number 1. He caught the first touchdown of the season, and we all said, whoa, that was quick. But again, a 66 completion rate against tight ends this year, 963 yards and 6 touchdowns. Ding, ding, ding. I think we have a winner for who may be in for a big game. McCaffrey has a route certainly towards 100 yards, but of those two, I'm certainly picking George Kittle, maybe even Jake Tungus to be a major factor. A big reason for the Seahawks struggles against tight ends, while they utilize 3 safety sets, is their piss-poor linebacking coverage with Ernest Jones. Now, Jones is a really good run defender. It's a reason why the Seahawks that can be had on the interior defensive line usually don't get had because they have good run defending linebackers. But where they struggle, or where they're good at run defending, they struggle in coverage. This year, Ernest Jones, the Seahawks starting linebacker, 73.4% completion rate, 482 yards, 324 of those being yak after the catch, and 1 touchdown. You got Jones out there. You got Kittle out there. Buckle up. Get on your saddle and let's play some Cowboys and Indians and let's go crazy. Because, we're going to have some fun. But that, to me, is the last note I will give for the on-the-field play. But there is one final underlying unfortunate note we have to address on the show, and I will not blame this. This, to me, should be a minimal factor in the game, but it's worth noting for you because I know when games happen and it's big games, the NFL likes to, have their hand on the outcome, which unfortunately sucks. And I'm hoping it doesn't play a factor. I'm not one to often blame the refs because a lot of the times it's unwarranted. That said, Bill Vinovich is the one refereeing this game. So basically, you can toss everything I've said for the last hour and 34 seconds out the window. It means nothing now that Vinovich is the one refereeing this game. So far this year, divisional home teams are 27, 35, and 1 with Vinovich refereeing since 2016. And this year, divisional home teams are 3 and 5. So that does not bode well for San Francisco. And going back into the history books of recent, he is the one that refereed both of San Francisco's Super Bowl losses. So don't love to see that on the book for the 49ers. Hate to witness the referees maybe being a factor in this game. Hopefully they aren't. The way you avoid the refs being a factor, which they've made themselves part of a lot of games this year for a lot of dumb reasons, you just play your best football. The way you avoid the refs, whether it's baseball, the umpires, or referees in the NBA, you just play your best football. You hit your shots, hit your targets, and score some points. That is how you avoid the refs having their hand in things, and hopefully the NFL is smart enough to realize that people want to watch these two teams go at it. I don't want to see a flag fest. I want to see these two NFC West juggernauts that have a lot of flaws on their teams, San Francisco having a ton more than the Seahawks do, just play football. I want to see offensive geniusing. I want to see defensive geniusing, if you will, out there. I want to see a chess match of really good teams on display. The best product the NFL can put on the field is the players and coaches dueling back and forth. I don't want to see flags. I don't want to see, 13-yard penalty, replay first down. I want to see two teams that are vying for the number one spot in the NFC, a bye week, a division crown. I want to see these two teams duke it out fisticuffs. The last thing anyone wants to see in a TV show is, they're going to square off. It's Sub-Zero versus, Scorpion. And all of a sudden you're like, what? Who is this dude? Why is he here? Why is this a triple threat? No one cares. You want to see John Cena against Randy Orton, John Cena against Edge. You want to see Roman Reigns against Cody Rhodes. You don't want to see, why is Seth Rollins here? Why is Austin Theory here? You don't want to see that. I'm going deep in the WWE cut right now. You don't want to see that. You want to see the two best teams face off. And this is, in some degree, a Super Bowl-esque matchup. This is a game you put in prime time. ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. Let the sports lead, not the refs. So I'm hoping it isn't the case. My prediction, though, Week 18, winner take all for the number one seed in the NFC. Winner take all for the NFC West division title to get a bye week in the NFC playoffs, as my dog shakes his ears. His name is Stanley, by the way. He's very handsome. But continuing here on the show to end the hour-plus podcast link leading into Saturday's primetime matchup, I think San Francisco wins. I think this is more of a hope rather than what I believe will happen. Quite frankly, the Seahawks are a better team than San Francisco is. I can admit that. They play better all year long on defense, or at least they are more complete as a team. They're healthy. They're getting competent quarterback play. They can run the football similar to San Francisco can. They run similar offenses, but their defense is far better than San Francisco's. That said, sometimes the best teams don't win. San Francisco, in my opinion, was the best team in both their Super Bowl losses as of recent. Maybe you can go back to the one against the Ravens too. I'd probably agree with you, but that Ravens team was really good as well. That said, sometimes the best teams don't always win, right? We've seen a lot of great teams in recent sports history lose, and you're like, how'd that happen? The Phillies and the D-backs and the NLCS, what happened there, right? But I do think that the Niners win this game. I think something should be said about how good Brock Purdy has played. Maybe I'm putting too much into that, but he's been so good. Like, Brock Purdy has played like an elite quarterback. I don't think he's the best quarterback in the NFL like some people do. That's crazy to me. But the way he's playing right now, you can maybe pitch me on that for at least a current stretch of play. He's been phenomenal. And if he continues that, the sky is the limit for this team, for this offense. I'm expecting a close yet high-scoring game. I think San Francisco wins 30-27. I think it's going to be close. This game is going to have to be, which team scores last, in my opinion. I think San Francisco maybe has about 5 minutes left in the game. They have the ball. They're marching upfield. And I think they score a touchdown 30-27. Maybe the Seahawks have about 30 seconds left, one timeout. And they just can't get into field goal range, hopefully, or at least if they do, they miss it. It'll be close, though. This game is a toss-up to me. There's really no team favored. Not having Trent hurt San Francisco a ton, but you are begging for a career game from YGM, Keon White. Please play. Please play. Please play. And the rest of the San Francisco defense, they seem like they're just kind of not team of destiny, but that's pretty far for me. But I think they just feel like that they're playing with house money. So let's go balls to the wall. And I don't know about you. I'd never put my balls to a wall, but if you're going to, week 18 should probably be the game you do that. Maybe we can play some Low John at a certain point on the show because, you gotta get low right at times. Shout out Low John and the East Side Boys to end today's show. But I think San Francisco wins 30-27, and they kick off the new year in 2 days on January 3rd, Saturday at 5 p.m. ESPN and ABC. And they get the win. I think they have to get it. I think if you lose this game, and you're the 49ers and the Rams, who likely win, and you're playing Philadelphia round 1 on the road where it's cold, I don't know if that's a recipe for success. You win this game, you stay at home, you get Trent back, maybe you get Fred Warner back, who knows? And maybe you can start to see things come into fruition. But right now, I think San Francisco wins in a must-win game for, I think, this team's Super Bowl aspirations. Anything's possible. Shout out Kevin Durant. And I think San Francisco rides the hot hand and pulls things off, but I will be there alongside you, grinding my teeth for the next 2 nights, wondering what's going to happen. And I'm sure every single play, I'll be sitting there like yelling and screaming of like, you gotta be kidding me, what's going on? And if I see that little sucker Bill Vinovich out there throwing flags, catch his 5-knuckle shuffle. Shout out John Cena. A lot of shout outs to end today's show, but we'll end here. I think San Francisco wins 30-27. God help us. We need it. But Seattle's a good team. Respect to them. I have a lot of Seahawks friends, so we'll be texting back and forth, and hopefully I'll be talking some crap. They were talking crap week 17, thinking the game was over, but I told them, I said, see you soon, honey. And hopefully we don't have to see them again. You win this game, maybe you avoid the Rams, Seahawks, and Philadelphia in the playoffs. So that is what you're hoping for. And I think it'll at least get done this Saturday, one game at a time. And it would be nice to have a week off in the wild card round, rest, relax, and hopefully watch some other teams that are maybe higher seeded or lower seeded than you that you believe are better than you knock themselves around and out of the playoff picture in the wild card. But that's all I have for you today. Hope you guys can like, share, and subscribe to the show. I'll be back in my actual home office, hopefully leading into this game and reacting to it post afterwards. But until then, my name is Sterling Bennett. Hopefully you can like, share, and subscribe like I already said, but also follow us on social media at 49ers.access is the Instagram. 49ers_access is the X or Twitter, and use that promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERSACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2026, and hopefully San Francisco can kick things off with the win, and we can light some fireworks with a t-shirt and hat type of game. That said, until next time, stay faithful.